Hello everyone, and today's a special edition. Today we're going to be talking about Jonathan Brooks, and specifically this particular blank that we use to make this pen. The blank is called Primary Manipulation Number 1. And how did he get there? How did we arrive at this point? And what does this blank mean to the custom pen making industry and pen making in general? So stay tuned. Now, I've known Jonathan Brooks probably, over 10 years easily over 10 years, maybe 12, 13 years. I started buying blanks from Jonathan probably 2013, 14, when I first started buying blanks from him. And then you'll see one of the pens that I made out of this particular material that he made me. Somebody asked me for a Tiffany colored pen, the blue Tiffany box. And Jonathan, this blank right here is probably 2014. I know it's 2014 because that's the year that I made that pen. So that's how long I've been buying blanks. These are also blanks that I bought prior to buying this blank. So these two right here are probably 2014. Now, Jonathan started making blanks, I think, in 2009. We talked about it at the last Atlanta Pen Show, and we kind of reminisced about how long we've known each other and how long I've been buying blanks from him. But I've had these two blanks for many years. And I look at them now as kind of like, I don't want to use them because I've had them so long, and they're some of his earliest stuff that I don't know that people have anything this early from him anymore. So now fast forward, this is some new stuff. Like, I think I bought a couple of these in Atlanta. I think I bought this one last year. I don't remember the names of them, but if you go on his website, you'll see. Now, he knows that I'm into darker colors, so he always tries to steer me towards those darker colors. And he's right. I like the blacks and the reds and the darker colors. But, you know, he's come such a long way with his blanks. And it's just such a kind of a cool history to see where, you know, he once was. And his blanks were very good even back then. But a lot of the stuff he's doing is so much different now. And all of it's still very good. All right. So primary manipulation. I'm not really sure when he invented primary manipulation. I know it was probably at least 10 years ago, maybe even longer. And it's a really, really cool blank. It kind of reminds me of taking a base color of white and adding colors to it and just mixing it around. When you were like, you know, if you were a painter and you used a base color of white, and then you'd take and you'd add colors to it, and some that you would add different colors to thin it out or to spread it out, or it's just a crazy combination of colors it seems like it all stems on a white base, and then everything just kind of like mixes in with it. It was like it stirred to a point where they didn't lose their colors, but they kind of came together. It's absolutely a fascinating blank, and that's just my take on it. But there's so many different colors in this blank. Like I said, you have the whites, and then you have the ambers, and then you have purple and red and blue. Maybe a little green there. But again, it could be that there's maybe 4 or 5 different colors, and once they start to mix together, he gets to a point where he sees the mix that he needs, and that's where he stops. Now, since this blank, we are already up to, I think, primary manipulation number 5. I'm sorry, can't say it. From talking to him recently, 2 and 3 are no longer available because the colors that he used in those blanks are no longer available. So PM1 to then you jump over 2 and 3 and to 3.5 all the way to 5, and then there's some different variations of PM like warm tone or cool tone PM. So what is the significance of this blank on the pen making community? Well, I can tell you it's pretty big, and I'll tell you why. Prior to Jonathan Brooks making primary manipulation, a lot of blanks that were made by custom makers were either used by themselves or bought by other, custom pen makers, or they used to call themselves kitless makers. And people would just use the blanks and make the coolest pens that they could from, and it was fun. But Jonathan took blank making mainstream. What I mean by that is that he started being sought after by legit companies or commercial companies that made pens for sale to the open market, like Franklin Christoph or Leonardo. So what he did, though, is he made it available for other makers as well. So he was the jumping off point. He was the pioneer. He was the person that got it all started. And you have to give him his credit. You really do. Because before him, it just never really happened. Companies would use either acrylics that were made in a factory, or they would buy, vintage materials, or just DuPont plastic materials. They never reached out to custom makers who were at home, like a mad scientist like Jonathan was, coming up with these crazy blanks that were, really cool looking. So when in that sense, we all owe him a debt of gratitude, because he got the whole thing started. He is the very first. And primary manipulation was the first blank that you really saw that from. And as years gone by, and as time has gone by and years have gone by, you see more and more of his blanks being made into commercially made works. And there's something to be said for that. And now you're starting to see other blank makers also get their chance at that because of him. And I think that's a great thing. And for that, we owe him a debt of gratitude. So now let's get to the specifics about this blank. As I can tell you, the blank came in at his blanks are about 9 inches long. Now, in the past, I've criticized that I wish that blanks were longer. And do I wish his blanks were longer? Yes. But on the other hand, I think, Jonathan can call his own shots. If you want to make a bigger pen, you buy 2 blanks, basically. I just think that this blank, there's really no room for criticism for this blank. And the reason I say that is that proof is in the pudding. It's been used many times. It's been successful. And how can you argue with that? Personally, and Jonathan knows me, this is usually not my color scheme, because I'm a person that creates a lot more dark and more monotone pens in the past. And the reason for that is because I do a lot of metal work, as you can see. And I usually let the metal work stand. And the blank a lot of times it was either like a vintage material or an ebonite or something that didn't really stand out and make a statement like this blank does. And this blank definitely makes a statement. So for that reason, I love it. It's a great blank. It's going to catch the eye of anyone. And after all these years, I think it's still a relevant blank. And I think that he probably still sells a lot of them. So working with this blank was easy. This blank, I want to get away from calling blanks beginner blanks. I want to start saying that things are either user-friendly or not user-friendly. So from this point on, any blank that I refer to as user-friendly can be a blank that most anybody can use. If I say it's moderately difficult or it's difficult, that means it's not user-friendly. But this is a very user-friendly blank. And I'll be posting videos of what it looked like as I turned it. In the past videos, I've mentioned that when I turned the material, it would get like a dusty, hazy finish to it, but not this blank. And I always make sure to sharpen my blanks before I work with each piece. This did not. I was able to see the pattern, and I was able to see what it was going to look like once I had it finished. So as far as turning this blank, it was really easy to turn. It didn't fight me. It didn't have any issues with pinholing or anything like that. And it just threaded amazing. Look at those threads. The threads are nice and clean, and I didn't have to do much finish work to these threads. A lot of times when I get some of that dusty material, I end up having to try to finish these threads a lot, but not on this one. So for that reason, I think that this blank could be used from anywhere from, brand new makers who want to try to make I wouldn't suggest making your first pen out of primary manipulation because you might not get another piece. But you can do it. You can make your first pen out of it, but I really think that these blanks right here should be used when you really know what you're kind of doing and you can make the best pen you can, because, like I said, they're not always readily available. But it was easy to turn. It was very easy to sand and polish. So it's a very much a user-friendly blank. And I think that's, I think from most of the blanks that I've used from Jonathan and my recent one that I made during Christmas, it was a very easy blank to turn and a very easy blank to polish. So for that reason, I think that most of his blanks are going to be like that. Different makers use different types of resin and different micas and different colors, coloring agents. So with that being said, that always can be an issue. So like I said, I haven't used a ton of his blanks over the years because it's the color combinations just weren't what I was doing at the time. Since I've been making waterfall clips, which is the last 4 years, I've been branching out to materials like this. And so the question that I would ask myself, Tim, would you use this blank again? And of course I would. Only a fool would not use this blank again. And I don't mean that mean. Maybe it's just not your color palette or whatever, but it was an easy blank to machine, and it looks great, and they sell well. This one is already sold. And of course I would use this blank again and again and again if somebody wanted it and if I could get my hands on more and more of them. That being said, the announcement is that I have contacted Jonathan and I said, I think it would be kind of cool if we kind of did a retrospective of your blank making career. And I'd like to go through all of the primary manipulations. And I want to do the same thing I'm doing here, is kind of do an overview of the blank and what I think of it. And I'll get more history in the coming videos. But, history doesn't sell blanks. Blanks sell blanks. And this blank definitely sells itself. But I think for the future, and we've kind of partnered on a little project here, that he's going to send me some of his blanks, and I am going to make each one of them, and I am going to do a YouTube video on each one of them, and we're going to talk about what they mean. And, I'm going to get some ask him some questions. What, why did he make primary manipulation 3, 4, 5, and what was the reasons? Obviously, he's a blank maker, so he wants to keep making new stuff. But could it have been that primary manipulation 5 was made for a specific company? Who knows? But we are going to dive into the Jonathan Brooks catalog, partial catalog. And I think what I'm going to do is once I receive the blank, every other week I'm going to do one of his blanks until I get through them. So let's say that this was the first one. Next week I'll do someone like, I don't know, Nick Pasquale or, Turnt Pen Company or Diamond Cast. And then the following week I'll get to a Jonathan Brooks blank. One last thing to talk about with Jonathan is that he is not only a big influence on a lot of makers within the industry, he's also at home. His daughter is now making blanks, and I have bought from her, and she will be in this series, Fountain Telling. So that is all for now, and I'm excited about this little journey that I'm going to take with him, and I have enjoyed this pen. All right, talk to you guys later.